Hi everyone and welcome back to OC Avery. In today's video we've got a bird room tour of Richard Jones of the Robertson Jones Norwich partnership. So we're heading over to Wales today to take a look around some of Richard's birds, and bearing in mind that these clips were filmed early September, so the birds are in mid-molt as we see them. So let's get right to it, a tour of Richard Jones bird rooms and the Norwich partnership. So Richard's been very kind in letting me come round and do some filming just at his bird rooms, and here you can see me and my dad outside Richard's two bird rooms. So the first birds I want to talk about are Richard's whites. Now the partnership did very well at Stafford with getting the best white canary, best white Norwich at the show. So here you've got the whites that which Richard had bred this year. These are the current year birds. Between the pair of them and the partnership, they bred these whites, and they're lovely looking birds and really well done. And one of the things that Richard had emphasised to me was the fact that it can take very little sort of colour food to affect the plumage and the feather of the whites. So what he does is has them the white canaries separate from the rest of the stud, so that there's no chance of any colour food getting into them at all. So because it could really ruin the feather on them, and obviously completely ruin the colour by having that colour come through on the caroufil orange. So this is his whites, and then we'll talk about we've got the rest of the Norwich to look at. So Richard's got a real variety. He's got clear birds in obviously buff and yellow. There's the tick birds, buff and yellow. There's well variegated birds, and something that was great to see is just how well kept they all were. The cages are really clean, obviously, plenty of access to baths, fresh water, everything like that, everything that should be, obviously. So really great to see. And something that we spoke about was the colour feeding methods. Now, people colour feed the birds differently. Some people prefer water, some people prefer sort of egg food and mix like that. Now Richard colour feeds his Norwich with caroufil orange now, in the food, the egg food mix rather than the water. It just means that you don't have to clean down the cages as much. And what he said is that it can take a few days for the actual stuff to leave the system. So he doesn't give the egg food, the colour feeding egg food every day. I think he said about every 3 days it can take to get out of the system. So it's important to do that, but also important that you don't leave it too long, because if you do end up leaving it too long, then you end up with birds that are patchy, where the caroufil has ended up in some feathers and not others, or too much in one feather and not enough in the other feather. So that was a big talking point, is that the balance of the colour food in the egg food was critical to get a good solid colour throughout the Norwich. Now, not only is he obviously all the clear birds, the variegated birds, but he's also got some greens, and they look fantastic, lovely birds. And although we are seeing them mid-molt, you can see the quality coming through already, and that was lovely to see. Just how they're getting on. Now he's got quite a few of the birds separated throughout the molt, divided off into single cages, just to give them hopefully a bit of a more stress-free molt than with other birds. But I think it all depends on the stages of development and whether that's a bird that he's wanting to look at for the moment, whether it's be a show bird, or there's some maybe younger, later bred birds that are all together, because you're just not going to be able to see much quality in them yet. So not only was the green something, but then the cinnamons. Now he got some lovely cinnamons, really nice birds, yellows obviously as well as buffs, and just really nice looking birds. I think the cinnamon Norwich are lovely, so it was great to see them, and some really good quality birds of them as well. So that's his side of the Norwich stud for the Robertson Jones Norwich partnership. And this is a look around his Norwich room, where he's got all his Norwich Canaries. So it was great to see. And although a smaller size bird room, it's very effective, obviously, with the numbers that are bred and the quality of the birds that are bred in there. So it's really great to see how just a smaller setup can be just as effective as a very large setup. Now, something not only that Richard does is not only the Norwich but the feeder canaries, and the feeders are critical for rearing the Norwich because the Norwich canaries tend to not have as much of a drive to feed as other breeds of canaries, so it's vital that you have these foster parents available and on hand whenever you need them, so that you don't lose chicks, you don't lose eggs. The Norwich might not sit the full term on the eggs, they might not rear the chicks once they hatch, and it's always useful to have these feeders as a backup so that you don't lose them. And I think that's a hugely, massively important part of having Norwich stud, is having an equally as good stud of feeders so that they are proven birds. Now, Richard has got and built over the years with Arwell is a really good stud of feeder canaries, and they're built off of several different breeds that we spoke about in the Natives and Norwich Zoom room with them a good few months ago, I think in February. So with the feeders, they were built from Norwich, they were built from Fifes, they were built from Irish, Lizards, I believe there's red factor in them and new colour. So there's a real mix of breeds in there, and you might be able to see from some of these clips is there is some crested birds in there, which would probably make me think it's sort of maybe even Harlequins in there, the crested ones. I think it's Stafford Canaries with the crest, or it could even be Gloucesters with the corona Gloucester. So I think it's a corona, or it could be the consort. I get quite confused with the Gloucesters. So that's the feeder canaries, and what he did over the years was make sure that any of the feeder canaries bred were only bred and continue to keep those birds that are bred from the best mothers, so that what he developed over time was a stud of birds that were the best feeders. So rather than having just a random selection of the feeder canaries, he's always looking for which mother reared the best, and then they're the youngsters that we keep on for the following year. So if a bird didn't rear the youngsters or had any problems like that, then it would sort of be eliminated from the equation. So he's got over time a really good, nicely built up stud of feeders that are reliable and do what they need to do, because the last thing you want, especially when having a really good stud of Norwich, is having any birds that you can't rely on 100% to feed. So by doing that, it's great that Richard's been able to build this with Arwell over the past few years, and now got a stud of birds that he's happy with and believes that the feeders they can't be matched, and that they do exactly what he needs them to do when it's rearing the Norwich. So that's great, and what a great stud of birds. Now, sadly, we didn't get to visit Arwell. However, hopefully we'll do it at some point, and we'll have another revisit of the partnership. But hopefully you've enjoyed seeing some of the birds. Fantastic birds as well. I mean, the Norwich Canaries are lovely. The whites are superb. I love the whites, and here is a video of it's actually a 75% clear white Norwich. Clear white Norwich, 75% Norwich though. Which I had off the partnership in Stafford. So that the idea of bringing that bird is in for mulling, which you can see on my channel with more videos to come and previous videos and what the plans are going to be with that bird. And then also he very kindly gifted me a pair of his well renowned, very, very good feeder canaries, and I'm really looking forward to having those on board for next year. Massive thank you to Richard for that, and I really look forward to hopefully seeing them prove themselves and live up to how good I've heard that they are. So that should be great. So that's a couple of birds in from Richard as well, and I must say a massive thank you. Now, one last thing just before we finish this short episode of a bird room tour of Richard Jones's setup is I'd just like to say a massive thank you to him for the gift of the Cage Birds Volume 1 book. This contains a real variety of old articles and all sorts of things from the past with cage birds, aviary birds, and all sort of things like that, all bird breeding. And some of the articles date back to 1956, so long before my time. And I'm sure before Richard's as well. So yeah, just great, massive thank you, and really appreciate the gift, Richard. Massive thank you, and thank you for the birds as well. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this short bird room tour of Richard Jones's setup of the Robertson Jones partnership. If you have and you'd like to see more bird room tours, smash the like down below, hit the subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.